The quality is purpose driven. And remember now, when we began, there's a group in Colorado decided who they felt were the 300 greatest leaders that had ever lived. From those 300 greatest leaders, they tried to determine why were they the 300 greatest leaders. Now, you can argue with who the 300 greatest leaders were, the Abraham Lincolns, the George Washingtons, the Jesus, the Mahatma Gandhis, the Martin Luther Kings. You can have your own opinion of who they were, but all of these 300 people, we still know who they are. So there's a reason why we know who they are. Well, they determined that there were qualities that each one of these people had, and they had developed them to the nth degree. What's really important for us, and we'll talk about this each time we go over the quality, is every person has these qualities in them. They may not have been developed. In other words, these people, somebody developed these qualities in them. You may not have these qualities developed in you, your students may not, your athletes, or whoever it might be, but this quality is in there. We just have to develop it. And we develop it by using stories, asking questions, and so forth. The first quality that we're going to talk about is purpose-driven. And purpose-driven is being, as you might say, goal-oriented. And it is the opposite of being time-oriented. You're either goal-oriented and purpose-driven, or you're time-oriented. Now, so many people confuse dreams with goals. Well, a dream is a vision. You know that you want to do something, but there's no plan with it. There's no work with it. There's nothing with it. It's just that I dream. My goal is to be a professional football player. Okay, what are you doing? Oh, I'm not doing anything. One of these days, I'm just going to turn around and I'm going to be a great football player. No, you got to have a plan with it. A goal is a vision with work. Now, drudgery is work with no vision. If you don't have any vision and all you do is work, you just do the work, that's drudgery. And that's what so many people are, I think, more guilty of than anything. The first story to illustrate it is a story about processionary caterpillars. John Henry Fabre was a great French naturalist. And what he did was he conducted a most unusual experiments with the processionary caterpillar. Now, the processionary caterpillar gets its name because it simply follows one right behind another. So what he did was he took a flower pot, and on the top of this flower pot, he put the processionary caterpillars end to end. So what they did, they just went round and round and round the flower pot. In the middle of the flower pot, he put the pine needles, the favorite food of the processionary caterpillar. The processionary caterpillars go around and around for 7 days, 24 hours a day, and they die of starvation and fatigue. Did they try hard? Sure they did. They worked as hard as they could. The reason they died is they had no direction. They had no purpose in their life. And that's what happens when you confuse activity with accomplishment. If you think you're going to go out and practice in athletics and you're going to get better, you're wrong. If you practice a bad habit, you get very good at a bad habit. You can't just go and practice. You can't just go to school and say, I'm going to go to school and I'm going to learn. I'll be a doctor if I go to school. No, there's got to be a purpose to it. When you go to practice, you've got to have a reason to go to practice. There has to be a purpose driven. You can't confuse activity with accomplishment. Because you put in 2 hours a day at practice does not make you better. There's got to be a purpose to it. When I was coaching, and in the years that I coached, every player that we had, before they went out to practice, took a Post-it note. And they wrote down 3 things they were going to get done that day. Any 3 specific things they were going to get done. Now, what did that give them? it took away the activity and made it an accomplishment. All of a sudden they became purpose driven because they were out there for a purpose. You have some questions that go along with each one of these stories about the processionary caterpillar. And the first question is, tell me about the day in the life of a human processionary caterpillar. You say, a human processionary? There's no such thing. Think about it. Think about how many people get up every morning, go to school. Why don't you go to third period? Because it's after second period. Why do you go to fourth period? It's after third period. You just go round and round and round. Do you go to fourth period for a purpose? Or do you simply go? Do you confuse activity with accomplishment? How do you weekly goals, and you're going to be setting weekly goals as we go, prevent you from being a processionary caterpillar? How does that work? Third question, Helen Keller, the blind philanthropist, was asked what was worse than being blind. Helen Keller said, having no vision. What does that mean to you? Those questions, answer those questions and discuss those questions, and you have the first part of developing the quality of purpose driven.